Welcome everyone, and let's begin our learning module on the multi-step income statement. It might be worth your while to go ahead and turn your book to page 31 as the slide gets a little messy, and you'll be able to see the slide that we'll be talking about in Exhibit 2-2, page 31. You'll see here on this slide that we're going to demonstrate or look at the parts of the multi-step income statement. The first thing I'd like you to take a look at while you're watching this video is to also refer to your book on page 31, Exhibit 2-2. What you'll see is Bed Bath & Beyond's financial statements for 2011, 2010, and 2009. You'll see a line item that says net sales, as you do here on this slide as well. Here is your net sales. So net sales is it's gross sales less sales returns and allowances, although we'll get further discovering that when we get to chapter 5. So right now, net sales means, hey, that's my sales less any returns. Then you see a line item that's called cost of sales. Cost of sales is inventory that you have sold. Inventory that you have sold. If you take sales minus cost of goods sold, you get gross profit. Okay? And gross profit is also sometimes called gross margin. It represents the profit of the company generated only when we consider the sales price and the cost of the product. So what that means is if a product sold for $100, that's what you paid at the cash register, and the company bought it for $50, that's what's going to be charged to cost of sales. You would end up with $50 of gross margin or gross profit. That gross profit that is reported is you then take all of the operating expenses out of that. So whatever you will have left over then becomes your net earnings, that which you can keep. And so you take sales minus cost of goods sold, also used cost of sales, and it equals gross profit. From that, you then will take selling and general and administrative. You then will take taxes and all of the other expenses that come out. So if we look at the Exhibit 2-2 on page 31, you'll see clearer that you have net sales minus the cost of those sales. So that's the cost of the inventory, gives you gross profit. You then will show selling, general, and administrative expenses, and then you come up with operating profit. Operating profit is that profit that you get from just operations. So that doesn't mean anything else extra that you're doing, like interest income would be maybe you have a notes receivable and somebody's paying you interest. So it is the income strictly from profit. Then you take out your income and then you show a line item, earnings before provisions for income taxes. Then you show the provision for the income taxes. And ultimately, you end up with net earnings just like we did on the single step income statement, which is what you have prepared before this. So technically, there are 4 key subtotals in a multi-step income statement: gross profit, operating profit, income before taxes, and net income or net earnings. 4 key subtotals in preparing the multi-step income statement. The best way to do this is to do one by looking at the accounts that you'll be putting in and where they get placed. So let's go ahead and take a look at. So let's go ahead and turn to page 45, and we're going to be looking at number 5 on page 45. So page 45, number 5. This problem says, during the month, a retailer generates $15,000 of sales. So let's go ahead and write that down. $15,000 of sales. $2,500 of operating expenses, and $11,500 in cost of sales. At the end of the month, the company had $7,000 of merchandise inventory on hand. The request is calculate the company's gross profit for the month. So that was really great that they gave us all of this additional information. But the only thing that you need to calculate gross profit is sales and cost of goods sold, which I'm abbreviating here, or cost of sales, is the only two numbers that matter in computing gross profit. So here we have 15,000 minus the 11,500, which gives us gross profit of $3,500. This is a subtract. Sales minus cost of goods sold, or cost of sales, equals gross profit. And in this case, after you do the math, would be $3,500. So if we go down to the next one, number 6, number 6 says, calculate the company's operating profit. Calculate the company's operating profit. So in this problem it says we had gross profit of $7,750,000. So we had gross profit of $7,750,000 during the year. Also during the year, Johnson incurred advertising expense, salary expense, and income tax expense. So at this point, they want you to calculate the operating profit only. So to get that, I would take the gross profit less what we would call selling, general, and administrative, and we would add those up. In our case here, it would only be the $2,100,000 for advertising, for salaries, and the $1,500,000 for advertising. If we add those up, we get $2,600,000. I added wrong. We'd get $3,600,000. $3,600,000. This gives us operating profit. We do not include the income tax because if you go back to the previous page, page 43, actually it's more pages than that. If you go back to page 31, I apologize, you'll be able to see that we have gross profit, operating profit, and then earnings before provisions for income taxes, and then the income tax. So the income tax does not get included here. So our operating profit here would be 0, 0, minus 0.514. $4,150,000 would be our operating profit. This is our profit strictly from operations. Then if we do other things like we pay interest or we collect interest or we get some rent revenue, it would go all here because that's not part of my everyday business. Okay? So when you use a multi-step income statement, you want to show operations and then everything else, like taxes, eventually ending up with the true net earnings and profitability of the company when everything other than operations is included. So we'll give you some problems in Cengage to go ahead and practice preparing a multi-step income statement, as well as the classified balance sheet that we talked about in class. So for now, let's go ahead and leave the multi-step income statement and move to learning module number 2.